you had the visual arts of graffiti, you had the musicianship of the rappers and the DJ, you had the showmanship of the dancers, but one thing you had was a very competitive environment. Similar thing was happening in bedrooms all across Europe at the same time. And we are going back to talk about the birth of a subculture known as the Demoscene. In the 1980s, loads of kids had computers in their bedrooms. And when you have a computer, you want to play a game on that computer, but you do not have any money to buy games for your computer. So someone needs to remove the copy protection from the game. And to show that you did that, just like taggers would do in New York City, you would create something like this up front. What is known as a crack throw, to say that I was here, we were the ones who did this. And our story starts in 1987 with the release of one of the most iconic computers in all of computer history. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, I'm talking about the Commodore Amiga. Give it up for the Commodore Amiga! This was a computer unlike anything that had come before it. And people started creating these little audio-visual demonstrations on that computer just to show their skill and proficiency in graphics, in music, and in programming, pushing the limits of these computers far beyond what they were meant to do. So, this is something early, but people were joining up in communities because we are talking mid-80s. This was not a time where we had social media. You actually had to go out and socialize with real people in the real world. And the way you would do that on the Demoscene is that you would rent a sports hall or a convention center or somewhere else and just bring your computer, sit there, be up all night, program, and compete in creating the best things. You would have, of course, the best demo, but also digital art, music, making things in just 4 kilobytes of memory, everything. It was super, super competitive, and it was all about being better than the next guy. So, it's time for a lesson. Welcome to the School of Teenage Engineering. Today's lesson is on vintage technology. This here is what is known as a television set. You might have seen one of these at your grandparents' house or maybe an aunt or an uncle. But actually, back in the 1980s, people used to have these things in their living rooms. And this thing had a cathode ray tube inside of it. That is a thing that shoots an electron beam towards a fluorescent screen, has some super strong magnets that can bend that beam to draw an image on the screen. So that thing would draw from the upper left-hand corner and down to the right. And it would do this 50 times per second. This is very important because this was an essence for creating what is known as demo effects. During the 1980s, people were very inventive in creating these visual effects that were all based around synchronizing with that beam passing across the screen, like this one, changing the background color. It's called raster bars. You can do it the other way around with a little of ingenuity, and people were always pushing the envelope, making something more amazing than what other people had done before them. The Commodore Amiga was only able to display 8 sprites at a time. There are a few more on this one. Display as many pixels as you can, moving in interesting mathematical patterns. That's one thing you can compete in. People had so many that it filled the screen and made it entirely white. Do 3D graphics. Of course, you start with the simple things, like just line vectors, as these, but it didn't take long before people learned how to do proper 3D graphics as well. And this was on computers without any graphics hardware, so they had to figure out how to do this all on their own. Mesmerizing patterns like these are all the basic building blocks of what would become a demo. Let's do one more. This is a 3D real-time rendered fractal zoomer. Amazing stuff, isn't it? Great to look at, but then something happened in 1990. Yes, because when people had learned how to do all of the basics, they started focusing more on design and storytelling and bringing all of these things together to create journeys where these effects were combined together to create amazing stories. And I remember the first time I saw this. Oh my freaking God, this was amazing. And remember, all of this is done in real time on vintage computers that were very limited. Your phone is way more powerful than anything of this. Still, these kids, because they were all kids, aged around 16 to 18-year-olds, all self-taught programmers who had to learn all of the advanced university-level maths to actually do these things, created these things, and they were competing. And these things were meant to be shown at conventions in competitions, and they did the psychological tricks as well. So listen for the sound claps. And you can clap along. Put your hands in the air and clap along. Yes, but there was another thing. There was another thing that was popular in the late 1980s and as well, and that was music television, or MTV. The longest running show on MTV was a show called The Party Zone. That started at midnight and went on till 4 in the morning when the chill out zone took over and you could come down. And they had these psychedelic visual patterns. And you know, this would definitely inspire some kids from the Demoscene. Let's meet one of them.
Nei, ikke kødd da, vi skal se din fleskefjes.
So, this was Paul Endre Endresen, and this here is his girlfriend. And they took them to the local school, took a video camera and filmed them dancing to create this thing. This is a music video created with the music, all of the graphics on the Commodore Amiga. When this was released, this was the most amazing thing that people had ever seen, and there were 16-year-old kids from Norway making this. This actually got shown on MTV as a music video on the Party Zone, so that went pretty full circle. Whew. Give it up for the Norwegians. So, at that point, people thought, okay, we come to the end of what we can do with the Commodore Amiga. But hey, there's a new computer on the scene, the Intel 486 processor for the IBM PC. And a bunch of kids from Finland created this thing. And it looked way more advanced, way more amazing than anything anyone had seen before. And it was just mesmerizing, so I'd let you have a look at this for a while. There we have the pixels again, the dots. This is called a dot tunnel. More of those psychedelic effects, and even more of them. There is a crescendo coming on. Can you feel it? Whoa, yes, that was second reality, and everyone was mind blown and thought, wow. Then suddenly people started doing cover versions. This is Second Reality made on the Commodore 64, a computer from 1981 in the cover version. That computer was 17 years old at this point in time. Here is the same thing, done in just 4 kilobytes of memory on Microsoft Windows. Amazing. This is a thing done on the vastly inferior Atari ST computer, but still they managed to do this there. This is Second Reality running on a Pebble smartwatch, so you could wear it on your wrists and have it on your go. But my definite favorite is this one. These are the Equestrian Alley coders with their second real pony. This was made for the Windows Media Player, and it, of course, has a My Little Pony theme to it. In fact, Second Reality was so popular that the Finnish death metal band Children of Bodom took the entire musical score from the cinematic opener and used it as the intro to their first debut album. But probably one of the strangest takes on this is this one. This is a live-action rendition of Second Reality with a cappella vocals. And these are pretty easy, so you can sing along to this. I've had people in Poland sing to this, for fuck's sake, come on! You almost got it, you almost got it. So, as you probably understand, Second Reality was a landmark. And people thought that, hey, this was the IBM PC, but now we need to figure out how to push the limits even further of our vintage computers, because we still have those. And this is something made for the Commodore Amiga in 1997. And we are at the end of this 10-year period that was genre-defying for what the Demoscene was. It started out with these really simple effects. 10 years later on, you had these incredible real-time rendered artworks with soundtracks that would be totally possible in a club in the mid-90s. And there is a cultural heritage to this. In 2020, Finland had their Demoscene registered on the UNESCO list of cultural heritage for Finland. In 2022, the Netherlands followed. Then Germany followed. Then Poland followed. This year, both Sweden and France have had their Demoscenes registered as UNESCO World Cultural Heritage. And we have a pretty good scene here in Norway as well. So get that petition going, because we need the Norwegian Demoscene to be part of this brilliant grand legacy. I will leave you with a collage of some of those golden moments from all these years of teenage ingenuity, of teenage kids pushing the limits of their home computers, being inventive, competing with each other to create the absolute most fabulous audiovisual productions. So just stand around and watch this, and you are free to dance to this.